Hey there, TBird Nation. This is another week of your TBird Math Minute here with Mr. Klein, and we're going to be talking about using the distance and midpoint formulas this week. So, teachers, if you would for me, this is problem number 1. I've given you the distance and midpoint formula up top, as you can see. You're going to use the coordinate grid below to answer the following question. Okay, we want the coordinates of the endpoints of a segment are negative 5, 1 and 4, 4. What is the length of this segment connecting these two dots right here? The length of this segment. So if you could calculate that for me, please. And teachers, if you would, hit pause and give your students an opportunity to calculate this segment. We will talk about the answer here in a few minutes. Okay, now that you've paused the video, you've had a chance to take a look at it. Let's take a look at how to calculate the answer to this problem. It says we want to find the length of a segment, so we're going to be using the distance formula up here and to calculate this distance and using these ordered pairs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to label this ordered pair here as x1 and x2. Or excuse me, not x1 and x2, we're going to go x1 and y1. And then we're going to go x2 and y2. And all we're going to do now is substitute those two ordered pairs into the distance formula. So as we do that, the distance formula, x2 in this case, is going to be 4. We're going to take and subtract x1, which is negative 5. We're going to square that. We're going to add that to y2, which is 4, minus y1, which is 1, and we're going to square that. So now as we look at this calculation here, we're going to go ahead and simplify these two negatives right next to each other. They're going to become a positive, and this is going to be the square root of, add 5 and 4, and you get 9 squared. And you take 4 minus 1 and you get 3 squared. So 9 squared happens to be 81. And 3 squared is 9. And if I add 81 and 9, you end up with the square root of 90. Now, you'll notice, though, as your answer over here on the left, you don't have the square root of 90 here. So we're going to have to do some simplifying here, breaking this square root down. So when we break this square root down, we're looking for the biggest perfect square that will go into 90, which happens to be 9, and 9 times 10 becomes 90. And now we can take and break this guy apart into the square root of 9 times the square root of 10. And everybody knows that square root of 9 is 3. And we're going to multiply that by the square root of 10. So the distance from this case, negative 5, 1 and 4, 4 happens to be letter C, which is 3 times the square root of 10. Okay, problem number 2 and number 3 are here. Again, you're using the grid to answer the two questions. First question is, what is the length of segment CD? Here's segment CD for you. They want to know what is the length. Okay, and then problem number 3, from the same graph up above here, same graph, we want to know what is the midpoint of CD. So, teachers, if you would please, hit the pause button and give your students an opportunity to calculate these questions, and I'll be back in just a second to look at the answer. All right, now that you've had a few minutes here to take a look at your answer, you got the two ordered pairs. Let's do some labeling again. And it doesn't matter which ordered pair you pick first, but I'm going to order this guy first. We're going to make that x1 and y1. If you wanted to, you can make the other one x1 and y1. Does not matter. But we're going to make this second ordered pair x2 and y2 just for labeling purposes, so that when I plug them into the formulas, it should be just easy substitution. So it wants to know distance. So we're going to calculate the distance. We're going to use that distance formula. In this case, we're going to take 7 minus 7. And we're going to square it, and we're going to add that to 3 minus negative 1, and we're going to square that. So when we end up with two negatives next to each other, they're going to end up making a positive for us. So this ends up being the square root of 0 squared plus 3 and 1 is 4 squared. And 0 squared is 0, so I don't need that guy anymore. So this is going to be the square root of 4 squared. Two ways you can do this here. You can take the square root and the square, cancel them out, and get 4. Or you can say, you know what, 4 squared is 16, and the square root of 16 is 4. So the length of CD is 4 units long. Now, the nice thing about this one also, if you wanted to, since it's straight up and down and it follows the y-axis, you could actually just count. So if I wanted to, I could take this starting at C and count down 1, 2, 3, and 4 units if I really wanted to. Now, unfortunately, if that line's diagonally, left, right, diagonal, whatever it might be, you couldn't do that. Okay, problem number 3 now. Let's take a look here. It wants to know what is the midpoint of CD. So we're going to use the midpoint formula here. The midpoint formula, we're going to use the same labels as we had before. So I'm going to take x2, which is 7, and add x1, which is 7, and we're going to divide that guy by 2. That's going to be our x-coordinate. And then we're going to take y2, which happens to be 3. We're going to add that to y1, which happens to be -1, and we're going to divide that by 2. So when I go through and simplify these here, okay, 7 and 7 is 14 divided by 2. 3 minus 1 is 2 divided by 2. So the midpoint is going to be the ordered pair 7 and 1. So if I happen to go to the ordered pair 7 and 1 and put myself a dot down there, I'm going to go right 7 and I'm going to go up 1. And you'll notice this dot right here is 7, 1. That happens to be exactly in the middle, which is the midpoint. Okay, TBird Nation, this is it for this week's edition of the TBird Math Minute. Look forward to next week.